So you and I right now are in beta brainwave patterns. And in beta, your attention is on your body in space and time. You're aware that you're in your body and you're in an environment and you're living in time. And the function of the brain is to create meaning and to create coherence between what's going on in our outer world and what's going on in our inner world. We're trying to make sense of that. And so what plugs us into our environment are our senses. When we're seeing, when we're hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, all that information is allowing us to access this three-dimensional world. If you didn't have any of your senses, you couldn't experience the 3D world. So in a sense then, when you're paying attention to your outer environment in your body, your brainwaves are in what's called beta brainwaves because it's got a lot of information to organize. So, but if I said to you, Ben, I forgot to tell you, but I'm going to give you a test on everything we talked about, and if you don't pass the test, I can't give you the interview. Well, you may pick up a little bit, and your brain may perk up a little bit more. The light bulb may get a little bit brighter, and you may focus a little bit more, and that's kind of a good kind of stress. But when you're angry and you're frustrated and you're impatient and you're depressed or anxious, your brainwaves go 3 times as high into what's called the high beta brainwaves. Now you're in survival. The brain is aroused. There's a threat. There's a stimulus. There's an unknown. There's something you can't predict. You're losing control. There's something that's causing your brain to get super aroused, which means pay attention more to your outer environment. Take care of your body. There's a threat. You got a certain amount of time to do it. And people get locked into these high beta states, and they need narcotics, they need drugs, they need alcohol to kind of sedate their nervous system. Well, the moment you start changing your breathing, the moment you close your eyes, the moment we play soft music in the background, and you're all of a sudden less preoccupied with your body, with your environment and time, your brainwaves slow down from beta brainwaves to alpha brainwaves. And in alpha, you start paying attention more to your inner world and less to your outer world. You stop thinking with the voice in your head, and you start imaging and pictures and scenes. And that imaginary state is what we call alpha. If your body starts to fall asleep and your mind is awake, that's called theta. That's a perfect hypnagogic state where you're very suggestible. If you go into delta, your body's in a catatonic state, you're unconscious most of the time, although we have certain measurements where we have people in delta and they're awake, and your body's in a restorative state. Now, when you get down, we've seen this in our research, when you start moving down into alpha and theta and the brain starts getting very coherent, very organized, the brain starts to synchronize. The front of the brain starts talking to the back of the brain. The person is connecting. They're not analyzing and they're thinking. When the brain starts getting very organized in that alpha and theta state, something magical happens. All of a sudden, the theta and alpha state, low alpha and theta, starts to act as a carrier wave. And all of a sudden, the sympathetic nervous system switches on. And all of a sudden, energy from the body starts being released up into the brain. And the brain gets highly aroused, and they go into what's called gamma brainwave patterns. Now the arousal is not coming from the lion in the Serengeti or the coworker that's pissing you off. It's coming from your body's energy, and it's being released back up into the brain, and a gate at the brainstem opens up called the thalamic gate. And the sympathetic nervous system drives this energy right up to the limbic brain, and then right up into the neocortex, and now the person is in that super aware or super conscious state. And the arousal is, in this case, very healthy instead of very unhealthy, like the hormones of stress. And the person is very lucid, and they're very clear, and they're more aware and more conscious than they've ever been. And if you're more aware, you're more conscious, then you have more energy, and all of a sudden the brain starts going into these very high energetic states. I mean, our energy measurements are sometimes 200 times normal in the brain, sometimes 300 times normal. That person is connected, and
yet
now
their body is asleep.
Body is completely relaxed, and they're in bliss. They're having an orgasm in their head. It's the only way I can describe it. Mm-hmm. And they're creating a long-term memory because it's so profound. And the gate opens up, and all of a sudden, now they're completely connected. And all of a sudden, ching, 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 we start seeing their brain just downloading data. It's incredible. And we can now predict it. We can say, oh, watch it, he's going to pop. He's going to pop in 5 minutes. We can tell that the person's going into coherence. They're moving down into theta, and we're like, ooh, in the next moment, this should be good. And all of a sudden, boom, it's like a champagne bottle. And all of a sudden, they go right into that high gamma state. And they're feeling so whole, they're so complete, they're so in love with life that it's impossible for them to want. They feel like they have everything they need in that moment. And when that happens, that's when magic starts to happen. The person starts really having some big, profound moments. So we know how to, at this point, induce that state, and we work on it. We've done probably close to 10,000 brain scans on our students. You come to our event, we scan your brain, we put you through 4 days of training, we scan your brain at the end of 4 days. I want to know the changes.
Sure.
It's just in your mind, it's in your brain. We've studied people during the meditative process when we're measuring what they're doing inside of their head and when they're getting close and when they're not. We're measuring the heart. When you feel gratitude and love and kindness and compassion, your heart gets very organized and very coherent, and it produces a measurable magnetic field. We want our students to, we want to measure that to know the person's doing it. So I can say to you, Ben, you're doing it, or I can say, Ben, you're not doing it. So when we see a person that can sustain gratitude or joy or freedom for an extended period of time, it's becoming a skill. They walk out into their life, and they're not just paying attention to their outer world, they're paying attention to this feeling because it's so good. So they say, I'm not going to trade this feeling for anyone or anything. We measure telomeres, we've measured genetic expression, we can prove that you can change your genes in just 4 days, upregulate genes that suppress cancer, to reduce aging, to stimulate stem cells to go to damaged areas of your body and repair it, to activate the microtubules, the cellular structures of the cell, to stimulate your immune system. We were able to do that in 4 days, turn on new genes, to measure the immune system responses, neurotransmitters, energy in the room, energy around people's bodies, because all of this information shows people how powerful they really are. And that's kind of why I wrote Becoming Supernatural, because common people are doing the uncommon, and the measurements are off the chart, and everybody's starting to figure this out, and now people are becoming less reliant on things outside of them and more trusting of the resources that they have within them. We measure telomeres, and telomeres are the little shoestrings on the end of your DNA that when a cell replicates, they shorten. And when people are under psychological or emotional stress or any kind of stress, those telomeres tend to shorten a little faster. And so my theory is, why not reverse it? Let's see if we can elongate them. So we have the data coming in this week, and gosh darn it, if those telomeres lengthen to any degree, 10% means the person got 10% of their life back in 4 days. And I do absolutely believe it's possible. And I'm not going to stop measuring because I think the measurements kind of silence the critics. I mean, you can't tell me that you can't change your genes in 4 days. I know you can. You can't tell me that you can't change your brain waves and make it a skill. I know you can. So
everyone's a skeptic, Joe. Everyone's always going to be a skeptic, right?
Yeah. So, but when you see the research and you see the data, yeah, maybe not everybody can do it, but if you got 50% of your community doing it, it's a pretty damn good sign that anything's possible. I've always stuck kind of in the scientific bandwidth to keep the peace to a certain degree, but sure. With all the measurements we've done and all of the scientific studies we've done over the last 5 years, I can tell you that people are doing some pretty supernatural things. And so the book is really about the how-to. Every single chapter, there's quite a bit of content, but we are giving people meditations in every chapter to practice just about their understanding how to induce the mystical experience, their understanding a specific breath to create gamma brainwave patterns. They're learning about heart coherence. They're learning about a walking meditation, and they're learning different ways to come at it so that they can begin to express a greater degree of themselves. And the measurements that we show in the book are absolutely supernatural. So it kind of validates this idea that we're more powerful and unlimited than we've really thought all along. Look, I mean, it's really simple. I don't have a problem with you putting your attention on your body. I think you should. I think you should really take care of your temple and make sure that you treat it really well. But there's a time when you have to get beyond it. And if you can't get beyond it, then that's your identity. So I think that people come to this work for many different reasons. Some people come for health conditions or diseases. People come because they want a new life. People come because they want answers. But I don't really care what a person comes for, because ultimately when they start connecting, their values change, and
Yep.
they start feeling differently, and they change, and they still have a great body, and they still have a healthy body, but in addition to that, they have a healthy mind, so I think really a great start for people is to wake up in the morning and ask themselves the simple question: what is the greatest ideal of myself that I can be today? What is the greatest expression of myself? And really sit down and decide who they want to be when they open their eyes. And just the act of closing your eyes and thinking about it and making choices differently than you typically do, and rehearsing them and actually follow through and doing them is going to lead you to a whole new life over time. So it's not that mystical, because the mystical is the side effect. It's the phenomenon of this work. The real thing is to have a more profoundly enriched life where you're in it and you love it and you want more of it. That's what I want for everybody. And for some people it may be the mystical. For some people it may be $1 million or $10 million. I don't care. I just want them to create it.
Right.
Just whatever you want, just get busy creating it and prove to yourself really how powerful you are. And we've got a lot of people doing it.